Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast. We cover everything Major League, from spring training to the World Series. We've got your favorite club covered, from New York to Boston to LA. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast.
And welcome back in, everybody, to the GSMC Baseball Podcast. I'm your host for today's episode, Patrick Kenny. You can follow me on Twitter at Patrick Kenny, Kenney _ look me up, follow me, or you go to the GSMC Twitter account, and you'll be able to find me there. I'm one of the followers. I retweet a lot of my own stuff, and I also retweet a lot of GSMC's baseball account stuff, so go follow us and check us out there. Today we got a really good episode for y'all. So I know that my last episode came out, I believe, Wednesday, which was Jackie Robinson Day. Actually, no, that was Thursday, actually. So my last episode just missed that, but I want to really go into today sort of the really important and really influential Negro League players, including Jackie Robinson. So in the first segment today, we're just going to be doing our regular stats and standings update, and then after that, we're going to be going over Jackie Robinson's story and his career and his accolades and how important he was. And then I want to talk about two other really important and influential players and people I think that have really, really cool stories. And that's Josh Gibson and Satchel Paige. And so we're going to get into those guys in just a second, but first, let's get started with some standing updates and all that fun stuff. So, leading the American League East right now is the Boston Red Sox. After starting out horrifically by getting swept by the Orioles, they are honestly one of the best teams in baseball right now. They're 9-4. They have a 3-game lead over Toronto, who is in second place. Toronto is 6-7. They are 3 games back, 1 game back out of the wild card. Then followed by Baltimore, who is 6-8. They're 3.5 back out of the out of first place, as are the Tampa Bay Rays. They are also 6-8. Both teams 1.5 back out of the wild card. And then the New York Yankees are in last place in the AL East right now. They are 5-8, 4 games back out of first place, and 2 games back out of the wild card. And then you go to the AL Central. The Kansas City Royals are 7-4, leading the division. Then they are followed by the Cleveland baseball team, who are 7-6, just 1 game back out of first place. They do have the wild card spot right now. Then you go to the Chicago White Sox. They are 6-7. They are 2 games back out of first place, 1 game back out of the wild card. And Detroit is up next in 4th place in the Central of the American League, and they are 6-8. Also, Minnesota is 6-8 as well. This is a very tight race still, much like all the divisions are, because it's super, super early in the season still. Both teams are 2.5 back, 1.5 back out of the wild card at 6-8. Then going out to the AL West, Seattle surprising everybody right now with a 9-5 record. They are first place in the division. Then the Los Angeles Angels are 8-5, just a half game back out of first place, and they are plus 1 game ahead of the Indians for the number 1 wild card spot right now. Then they are followed by the Oakland Athletics, who have been bouncing back after a rough start to start the season. If you're an A's fan, I was feeling for you at the beginning of this year, but so far it seems like y'all are bouncing back after that really, really rough start. Y'all are 7-3 in your last 10. The run differential still isn't great. They're still minus 19, but they're still doing really good right now so far. They are 6-4 against teams that are above 500 right now, which is really good. The A's seem to be bouncing back quite a bit after that rough start. Then in last place is the Texas Rangers. They are 6-8, 3 games back out of I skipped the Houston Astros. The Astros are 6-7. They are 2.5 back out of first place in the AL West, 1 game back out of the wild card. Oakland is a half game behind the Cleveland Indians for that second wild card spot. And then the Rangers are 6-8, 3 games back out of first place, 1.5 back out of the wild card. And then now going out to the National League, we're going to stay in the West. The Dodgers are the best team in baseball right now. There's a reason they were a World Series, or the World Series favorite out of everybody so far. They are 12-2. They are 9-1 in their last 10. They're on a 7-game winning streak. They are absolutely balling out. Then San Francisco is in second place, tied with San Diego for second. The Giants are 8-5, so they have a little bit better winning percentage than the Padres, but they are 3.5 back out of out of first place. They do have the wild card spot tied up. Then it is the San Diego Padres, who are 9-6 with being 3.5 back as well. Their winning percentage is a flat .600, whereas the Giants are a .615 or have a .615 winning percentage. So that's why they're ahead technically in the standings, just based on winning percentage, because they play a couple less games. Then you go out to Arizona, who is 5-9. They are 7 games back out of first place and 3.5 back out of the wild card. Then you go into last place in the NL West is the Colorado Rockies. They are 3-10. They are 8.5 back out of first place and just five games back out of the wild card. Then we're gonna go out to the NL Central, and I know I'm going through all these a little fast right now, so sorry about that. But I got to get to the stats as well here in a second. We got a packed show for y'all today. So the Reds are in first place in the Central at 8-5. They are followed by the Milwaukee Brewers, who are 7-6. They're both a game back from first place and the wild card. Then you go to St. Louis, who is 6-7. They are 2 games back out of first place, 2 games behind in the wild card, followed by Pittsburgh, who is in fourth place in the division. The Pittsburgh Pirates are 6-8 with being 2.5 back from both the wild card and first place. Then you go down to Chicago. Chicago Cubs are 5-8. They are in fifth place in the Central, but they are only 3 games back from first place and the wild card as well. And then we're going to finish up the standings today with the NL East. In dead last in the NL East is the Washington Nationals. They are 4-7, 2.5 back out of first place, 3.5 out of the wild card. Atlanta is 6-8 in fourth place. They are 2 games back out of first place, 2.5 from the wild card. Then Miami is in third place right now. They are 6-7, just 1.5 back out of first place, and 2 games back from the wild card. Then Philadelphia is the team that has played the most games, and technically they would be in first place had if you didn't go by win percentage and you went by overall wins instead. But Philly is in second with a 7-6 record, a .538 winning percentage. They are a half game behind the Mets, who have had a lot of rain delays this year. They have been delayed more times than they've played games this year, which is not a good look for MLB right now. In first place is the Mets. They are 5-3 in the 8 games that they have been able to play. They have a .625 winning percentage. They are 5-3 in their last 10 because they've only played 8 games. They are on a 3-game winning streak, and hopefully they'll be able to play Colorado today, April 17th, the day I'm recording this. That should be yesterday. So the standings are definitely going to change. There are so many teams that are super close to going from last place in the division to first place within a couple games. So, and now we're going to go over the league leaders and stats here and it's Ronald Acuna Jr. is balling out this year. It's pretty ridiculous how good he's doing right now. And I know that I was really high on Nicholas Castellanos and everything like at the very beginning of the season, but Ronald Acuna Jr. is having an April to remember. That is for sure. He's leading the league in OPS with a 1,431. The next two closest people are JD Martinez and Yerman Mercedes. They have a 1,307 OPS. Leading the league in batting average so far is Yerman Mercedes. He is hitting .476, followed by Brandon Nimmo and Justin Turner. Nimmo is hitting .464 right now, and then Justin Turner is hitting .440 so far this season. Ronald Acuna Jr. is in fourth place right there with a .429 batting average, and then followed by Yuri Gurriel, who is hitting .422. Going to the on-base percentage leaders, leading the league in on-base percentage is Brandon Nimmo with a .583 on-base percentage. Yuri Gurriel follows him in second place with a .544, followed by Vladimir Guerrero Jr., who is getting on base 526% of the time, and as well as Mike Trout, who has the same on-base percentage right now. All right, and so leading the league now in walks is going to be Joey Gallo, who is just getting walked so much right now. He's hitting .256, but his on-base percentage is .467, and that's because he has 14 walks. And Joey Gallo strikes out a lot, and he has 14 walks as opposed to his 17 strikeouts, and that's really good for Joey Gallo. He is doing very well this season so far. He's definitely probably going to be, or I think he's probably going to be a big trade piece here coming up in probably late July. Up next is in strikeouts. Oh, I'm sorry. Also in walks, Manny Machado is in second, followed by, as well as Max Muncy, Miguel Sano, and Mike Trout. They all have 13. And then Yuri Gurriel and Luis Arias are tied for sixth place with 12 walks so far this season. Leading the league now in strikeouts is Javier Baez and Taylor Tremnall, the center fielder for Seattle. They both have 22 strikeouts so far this year, so they're not doing great right now, but I think that both of those guys will probably cut down on their strikeouts once the season kind of progresses a little bit more. Then tied for third place is Jose Abreu and Matt Chapman. Both of those players have 21 strikeouts so far. None of those four players right now are hitting above 200. The highest average is Javier Baez right there with a 191. He's the closest person to the Mendoza line so far out of those guys. And then in fifth place, tied for fifth place actually, is Nate Lowe and Marcell Ozuna. They both have 20 strikeouts, and both of those players are hitting above the Mendoza line. Marcell Ozuna hitting 204 and Nate Lowe hitting 226. Now going over to leading the league in hits is Ronald Acuna Jr. He has 24 hits in 56 at-bats. He also has 6 doubles and 1 triple. In second place for hits is Justin Turner. He has 22. He has 6 doubles and 4 home runs. Then Cedric Mullins is in third place with 21 hits. He has 7 doubles and 1 home run out of the 53 at-bats that he has had. Then tied for fourth is Jake Cronenworth, the second baseman for San Diego, Mitch Haniger, the right fielder for Seattle, and Yerman Mercedes, the designated hitter for the White Sox. They are all tied with 20 hits apiece. Yerman Mercedes is a little bit more impressive considering he only has 42 at-bats so far this season, whereas Mitch Haniger and Jake Cronenworth are nearing 60, Cronenworth with 59 at-bats and Haniger with 57. Going over now to the league leader in doubles is JD Martinez and Cedric Mullins. They're both tied for first place with 7. Then Ronald Acuna Jr., Christian Arroyo, Rhys Hopkins, Corey Seager, and Justin Turner are all tied for third place with 6. And then a bunch more guys are tied for 8th place with 5 doubles. Now going over to our league leader in triples. That is Chris Owings of Colorado, the second baseman. He has had 15 at-bats. He has 8 hits, 3 doubles, and 3 triples. That is a pretty insane stat line, honestly. Like, that guy doesn't get a lot of at-bats, but when he does, it's going into the gap and he's getting extra bases, it looks like. He also as 2 walks and 2 strikeouts and 2 stolen bases so far this season. Willie Castro for Detroit, Adam Frazier, Gavin Lux, Shohei Ohtani, and David Peralta are all tied with 2 triple baggers. And then tied for 7th place, Ronald Acuna Jr., Aki Badu, Cody Bellinger, Calvin Biggio, Jackie Bradley Jr., Michael Brantley, Mark Canha, Nick Castellanos, Matt Chapman, Jazz Chisholm, Jake Cronenworth, and a whole bunch of other guys are tied for 7th place with 1 triple as well. Now going to our league leader in home runs, that is Ronald Acuna Jr. He has hit 7 home runs, followed by Ryan McCann and Wilson Ramos, who are tied for 2nd with 6. Then they're followed by Byron Buxton, Nick Castellanos, Rafael Devers, Edward Escobar, JD Martinez, and Tyler Naquin, all with 5. Now we're going to go to RBIs, and then after that we're going to go over a few pitchers. Leading the league in RBIs is Ronald Acuna Jr. and JD Martinez. They both have 16. Nate Lowe, Justin Turner are tied for 3rd with 15, and Tyler Naquin is in the lone 5th spot with 14 RBIs. Now we're going to go over to pitching, and our league leader so far in ERA are Carlos Rendon and Joe Ross. Those are both starters. Rendon obviously threw a no-hitter against the Cleveland Indians just a couple days ago, and it honestly could have been a perfect game had he was actually just inches away from being a perfect game. And so, I mean, props to him. That was an amazing pitching performance. Like, you can't hate on somebody for pitching that well especially against a team that you really like and that you hope does well. So, I mean, it kind of hurt watching him throw that well against my favorite team, but you know, that is what it is sometimes. Tyler Glasnow is in 3rd with a .46 ERA. He has started 3 games. He has a 1-0 record, a .46 ERA, like I said, in the 19 2/3 innings that he's pitched. Tyler Glasnow is pitching very well so far this year. Then Joe Musgroves has a .47. He has a 2-1 record for San Diego. Out of the 3 games that he started, he has given up just 1 earned run in the 19 innings that he has pitched in. The only reason Musgroves is a little bit lower is because he's pitched in 2/3 more of an inning than, the reason Glasnow is lower than Musgrove is because he's just pitched a little bit more innings than Musgroves. So in 5th place is Corbin Burns. He has a .49 in the 3 starts that he has for Milwaukee. He has a 1-1 record. He has given up 1 earned run this year, only 4 hits, which is the lowest aside from Carlos Rendon. And he has 30 strikeouts on the year so far. He is doing very well. Leading the league in strikeouts is Shane Bieber. He has 35 in the 21 1/3 innings that he has thrown, followed by Corbin Burns in 2nd place with 30 strikeouts, and then tied for 3rd is Trevor Bauer, Garrett Cole, and Tyler Glasnow. They all have 29 strikeouts. Leading the league so far in innings pitched is also Shane Bieber. He has pitched in 21 1/3, followed by Aaron Saval, also a Cleveland Indian. He has pitched in 3 games as well, tallying a 3-0 record, a 2.18 ERA. Shane Bieber's ERA is 2.11. He has pitched in 20 2/3 innings. Trevor Bauer and Johnny Cueto are in 3rd. Wow, I haven't heard that name in a while. Johnny Cueto up in the league leaders in innings pitched, tied with Trevor Bauer and Zach Efron of Philadelphia with 20 innings pitched. That is really impressive for a guy that has been in the league as long as Johnny Cueto has. Cueto has a 1.80 ERA. He's 2-0 in the 3 games that he's pitched. He's given up 13 hits, 4 earned runs, and 18 strikeouts for him. And then leading the league now in wins is going to be Aaron Saval, Yersme Petit of Oakland. I'm sorry, I'm definitely mispronouncing his name. Tweet me so I can figure out how to actually pronounce that kid's name. Connor Brogdon are all tied for 1st with 3 wins. Jose Alvarado, Jake Arrieta, Caleb Bragger, Trevor Bauer, Jose Barrios, Matthew Boyd, JT Brucker, Garrett Cole, Johnny Cueto, Danny Duffy, and a whole bunch of other guys are all tied for 4th place with 2 wins. Leading the league in saves, however, is going to be Jake McGee of San Francisco. He has 6 saves. Mark Melancone has 5 saves for the Padres. Diego Castillo in 3rd place with 3. Also tied with Emmanuel Class of Cleveland, Yimi Garcia of Miami, Kenley Jansen of the Dodgers, Ian Kennedy, Craig Kimbrell, Alex Reyes, Will Smith, Cesar Valdez are all tied for 3rd place with 3 saves. So that's going to do it for this segment. Up next, we got Jackie Robinson, his career accolades, everything that is good and wonderful about that man, coming up in just a second.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
And welcome back, everybody, to the GSMC Baseball Podcast. And in this segment, we're going to be talking about Jackie Roosevelt Robinson. He was born in Cairo, Georgia in 1919 to a family of shop croppers. His mom, Molly Robinson, single-handedly raised Jackie and her other 4 kids. They were the only black family on the block, and they were subject to a lot of prejudice. This is all coming from the JackieRobinson.com, his biography ran by his family and his estate. So he was a humble kid growing up, and he was the first player to break the color barrier in the segregated sport for more than 50 years. There were players before Jackie Robinson, but in Major League Baseball specifically, there were instances where a player, an African-American player, would come in and they would just list him as a Native American, so they would kind of try and get around that without being subjugated to fines and a lot of scrutiny, which is really unfortunate. But, you know, we're much better off now than we were back then, and this is a lot thanks to Jackie Robinson. So, growing up in a large single-parent family, Jackie excelled early at all sports, making his own way in life. He went to UCLA and became the first athlete to win varsity letter in 4 sports. He varsity lettered in baseball, basketball, football, and track. In 1941, he was named to the All-American football team. Due to financial issues, though, he was forced to leave college and eventually enlisted in the U.S. Army. After 2 years in the Army, he progressed to second lieutenant, and Jackie's Army career was cut short when he was court-martialed in relation to his objection with incidents of racial discrimination. In the end, Jackie left the Army with an honorable discharge. In 1945, he played 1 season in the Negro Leagues and traveled all over the Midwest with the Kansas City Monarchs, but greater challenges and achievements were in store for him. In 1947, Brooklyn Dodgers president Branch Rickey approached Jackie about joining the Dodgers. The major leagues had not had an African-American player since 1889, when baseball became segregated in the first place. When Jackie was first donned a Brooklyn Dodger uniform, he pioneered the integration of professional athletics in America. By breaking the color barrier in baseball, he was the nation's preeminent sport. Or in the nation's preeminent sport, He courageously challenged the deep-rooted custom of racial segregation in both the North and the South. At the end of Jackie Robinson's rookie season with the Brooklyn Dodgers, he had become the National League Rookie of the Year with 12 home runs, 29 stolen bases, which led the league, a .297 average. In 1949, he was selected as the National League's Most Valuable Player of the Year. He also won the batting title that year with a .342 average. As a result of his great success, he obviously would go on to be inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1962. Jackie married Rachel Issam, a nursing student he had met in UCLA in 1946. As an African-American baseball player, Jackie was on the display for the whole country to judge. Rachel and their 3 children, Jackie Jr., Sharon, and David, provided Jackie with the emotional support and sense of purpose essential for bearing the pressure of during the early years of baseball. Jackie Robinson's life and legacy will be remembered as one of the most important in baseball or in American history. In 1997, the world celebrated the 50th anniversary of Jackie's breaking into the Major League Baseball's color barrier. In doing so, we honor the man who stood defiantly against those who work against racial equality and acknowledge the profound influence of one man's life on American culture. On the date of Jackie Robinson's historic debut, all Major League teams across the nation celebrated this milestone. Also that year, the United States Post Office honored Robinson by making him the subject of a commemorative postage stamp. On Tuesday, April 15th, President Bill Clinton paid tribute to Jackie at Shea Stadium in New York in a special ceremony. And that's not the only time that Jackie Robinson has ever been recognized for doing the good work that he has done, and it's definitely not going to be the last. Every April 15th, I'm sure all of you are well aware, everybody in Major League Baseball wears the number 42. And the only other player that I am aware of, I'm sure that there have been other players, but the only other player that I'm aware of to wear the number 42 for the entirety of their career after Jackie Robinson was Mariano Rivera. And Mariano Rivera, I believe, is going to be the last person to do that. I believe that the number is retired across every team in Major League Baseball. And Jackie Robinson he was just that dude. He was so good. And he had played for a little bit with the Kansas City Monarchs and a few other teams, like kind of independent teams, like a lot of Negro League players did, because the Negro Leagues actually were not a very wealthy organization at all. In fact, they could only afford to play or pay their players 60-game seasons, so a lot of teams would go and play for a lot of other teams that were independent. Like Satchel Paige is kind of notorious for not traveling with his actual team on the bus and instead going and hopping in his car and then going and playing a game or two with a few other independent teams, and then hopping back in his car, and then the following day going and throwing another complete game for the Negro League team. And we'll get into him in just a second. He's one of the coolest stories ever. But Jackie Robinson was a dude. He played in 10 seasons, tallying 1,382 games. The most games he ever played in a season in the regular season was in 1951. He had played in 153 games. And for the most of his career, aside from the last 2 years of his career, he played in well over 120 games every year. The last 2 years of his career, in 1955 and 1956, he played in just 105 games and 117 games. He broke into the league as a 28-year-old rookie in 1947, where he had 175 hits out of his 590 at-bats. He had 31 doubles, 5 walks, 12 home runs, and 48 RBIs, as well as 29 stolen bases. He had 5 triples and 74 walks. He only struck out 36 times that year. His on-base percentage was a .383 with a .297 batting average. This dude was really good his rookie year, and then the final year of his career, he still hit .275. It was kind of amazing how good this guy actually was with the bat in his hand. His career average is a .311 career average. His career on base percentage is a .409. Career slugging is a .474. He had a career wise, he struck out 291 times. There are guys that strike out almost that much in an entire season now. He had 740 walks in the 10 seasons he played, and he was only caught stealing 30 times. And the first time that happened wasn't until 1951. That was his fifth year in the league. He was a base stealer. This dude was the truth when it came to stealing bases back then. He ended his career with 197 career stolen bases. He ended his career with 734 RBIs, 137 career home runs, 54 triples, and 273 doubles and all of that tallies into 1,518 career hits. He scored 947 runs, and he had over 4,800 plate appearances in the 1,300 games that he played. His career highs include 156 games played, 593 at-bats in a season, 125 runs in a season, over 200 hits one time in his career where he had 203. That was in 1949 when he won the MVP. His career high in doubles was 39. Career high in home runs was 19. 19. His career high in triples was in 1949, where he had 12 triple baggers. Career high in RBIs in one season, also 1949 when he won the MVP. He had 124 career RBIs that season. That is his career high. Also that year, he had 37 stolen bases, which is his career high as well. Career high in walks happened in 1952, where he had 106. Also in 1949, when he won the MVP, he hit 342, which is his career high. His career high on base percentage, however, did not happen until 1952, where he had a 440 on base percentage. And oh my gosh, this guy, he was so good at baseball. It's amazing how good this guy was at baseball. In the World Series, he was 1-5. They did go to 6 World Series, including the time that they won in 1955, which was the second to last year that he played. His best World Series was definitely or at least hitting-wise, was the 1953 World Series, where it went 6 games. He had 25 at-bats, 8 hits, 2 doubles, no home runs, but he did have 2 RBIs and 1 walk. He hit 320. His on-base percentage that series was a 346 on-base percentage. Overall, though, in his career with everything all tallied up, he had 137 career World Series at-bats, 22 runs scored, 32 hits, with 7 doubles, 1 triple, 2 home runs, 12 RBIs, 21 walks, and 14 strikeouts. His World Series career batting average was .234, and a career on-base percentage of .335, and then a career slugging in the World Series of .343 with 6 total stolen bases in the World Series. This guy was just so good at baseball. It's legitimately ridiculous how good he actually was at the sport of baseball. It's amazing how awesome, how amazing he was. Just some awards that we're going to go through. He was an all-star in consecutive years of 1949, 1950, 1951, 1952, 1953, and 1954. For 6 years in a row, he made the All-Star team for the National League. He won the Rookie of the Year in 1947, and then in 1949, he won the NL MVP. He had 4 top 5 finishes. 1947, his rookie year, he finished 5th. 1949, he obviously won it. 1951, he finished in 6th place. And then in 1952, he finished in 7th place. He was also elected to the Hall of Fame in his first year of eligibility in 1962. He won the NAACP's most prestigious Springer Medal. He was elected to throw out the first ball in the 1972 World Series, which was the first time that the Dodgers had been back since Jackie Robinson was on the team to the World Series. He has honorary degrees from the University of Maryland, Franklin Pierce College, Sacred Heart University, Pace University, Howard University, a citation from the National Conference of Christians and Jews, and then 2 Friends Awards of the National Urban League. Career batting average rankings. In 1948, he finished in the top 10 at number 10 with a 296. He finished first in batting average in 1949 with a 342 average, finished second the following year with a 328 average, and then in 1951, he actually finished in third, even though his average improved. He hit 338 that year and finished in third. And then in 1952, he finished in fourth with a 308 average. And in 1953, he finished eighth with a 329 average. His career batting average is 94th all time with a 311 career batting average. His on-base percentage, he finished 6 times in the top 10 on on-base percentage, and all but one of those are in the top 3. In 1949 and in 1953, he finished second. In 1949, he had a 432 on-base percentage. In 1953, he had a 425 on-base percentage. He finished third twice in 1950 and 1951 with a 423 and a 429 on-base percentage. And then in 1952, he had a 440 on-base percentage, which led the league that season. And in 1954, he had a 413 average on-base percentage, which was the 8th best that year. His career batting average of 409 is 40th among all players of all time, obviously. In the OPS category, his career OPS is 81st with an 883 OPS. In games played, he finished 6th in 1947 with 151 games played. In 1948, he finished 9th with 147 games played. 1949, he finished 2nd with 156 games played. And then in 1951, he finished 8th with 153 games played. Like, this guy was so good, and he was so important to baseball. It is actually ridiculous how much he has affected the game. And I know that I am so thankful for him doing what he did. He meant so much to this game and improved the United States in probably more ways than he actually knows. And I'm sure a lot of y'all have seen the movie 42, where Chadwick Boseman played Jackie Robinson, and you saw at least partly what Jackie Robinson had to go through kind of on a nightly basis and a daily basis. And that's one of the reasons why Branch Rickey went with Jackie Robinson, because he wanted somebody that was going to be a role model where the bigots that were not for Jackie Robinson to be in the league or integration in general, and he needed somebody that was going to be as level-headed as possible, because Branch Rickey was a very smart man and understood what was going on and what Jackie Robinson was likely going to face. And I think Jackie Robinson handled that and handled all of the hatred and everything that came toward him so well. And I'm sure everybody remembers if you have seen the movie, you definitely remember the scene where Pee Wee Reese is in his hometown of Cincinnati, and everybody who was there to go see him was didn't want him to take the field with Jackie Robinson. They didn't want to have to see that. And when Jackie Robinson went out on the field, everybody started booing him, and then Pee Wee Reese, and saying really horrific things. And Pee Wee Reese went over and threw his arm around him. And I think that was one of the most powerful images that I had seen in the movie, and then it made me go and look up the picture or the actual picture, and there are definitely a lot of pictures with Jackie Robinson and Pee Wee Reese that are like that, where Pee Wee Reese's arm is over Jackie Robinson's shoulder, and I mean it's just the amount of scrutiny that he had to go through to play baseball with other people it's just absurd how he had to go through all of that. And we're not done talking about the movie 42 just yet, because we're going to be talking about Josh Gibson up next. But Jackie Robinson was an amazing man, and I know that my words alone cannot do him justice. So if you're unfamiliar at all with Jackie Robinson, I really encourage you to go watch the movie 42 or go look up articles and stories of Jackie Robinson and how amazing he actually was. So we're going to take a short break right now, and then we're going to talk about Josh Gibson up next, and then followed by Satchel Paige here at the end. We'll be right back in just a second.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
All right, guys, and welcome back, everybody, to this segment where we're going to be talking about Josh Gibson. And he is one of the greatest players and one of the biggest legends of all time in baseball history. His nickname was the Black Babe Ruth because of how good he was at hitting home runs. In recorded games, he only has a career home runs of just 113. But I've seen definitely quotes where people have said that he's hit over 800 home runs in his career, and it's beautiful to hear his story. Unfortunately, If you've seen the film of 42, like I was talking about earlier, he was initially supposed to be the player to break the color barrier prior to Jackie Robinson, and he definitely he has a career home run total of either 238, over 800. Or 137 if you look on the Baseball Hall of Fame website. It's really, really important to understand how good of a player he was. And because of how good he was as a player, his legend just kind of grows. So just going over his life. He was born in Buena Vista, Georgia, to Mark and Nancy Woodlock. Gibson had a younger brother who was also a fellow Negro League player, Jerry, and he also had a sister. In 1923, he moved to Pittsburgh with his father to work at the Carnegie, Illinois Steel Company. Entering 6th grade in Pittsburgh, Gibson prepared to become an electrician, attending a pre-vocational school of that, as well as Conroy pre-vocational school. His first experience playing baseball for an organized team came at 16 when he played third base for an amateur team sponsored by the Gimbels department store, where he found work as an elevator operator. Shortly thereafter, he was recruited to play with the Pittsburgh Crawfords. In 1928, he was still a semi-professional baseball player for the Crawfords, controlled by Gus Greenland, who was the top black semi-professional team in the Pittsburgh area, and would advance to play professionally with the major Negro League status in 1930 and 1931. In 1928, Gibson met Helen Manson, who he married on March 7th, 1929. When not playing baseball, Gibson continued to work at Gimbels, having given up his plans to become an electrician to pursue a baseball career. In the summer of 1930, the 18-year-old Gibson was recruited by Cumberland Posey, the owner of the Homestead Grays, which was the preeminent Negro League team in Pittsburgh. Gibson debuted with the Grays on July 31st of 1930. On August 11th, Gibson's wife, who was pregnant with twins, went into premature labor and died while giving birth to twin sons, Josh Gibson Jr. and a daughter, Helena, named after her mother, and the children were raised by Helena's parents. His career was quite impressive. He was a Homestead Gray from 1930 to 1931. Then he went back to playing with the Pittsburgh Crawfords from 1932 until 1936. Then he went and played in the Dominican League for a little bit, where he played for the Dragons de Ciudad Trujillo in 1937. And then when he returned back to the States, he played for the Homestead Grays from 1937 to 1939. Then went and played in the the Mexican League, where he played for the Azules de Veracruz from 1940 to 1941, and he would finish his career with the Homestead Grays from 1942 to 1946. He was a 12-time All-Star, tallying a 1933, 1934, 1935, 1936, and then the 1939 Kaminsky, 1939 Yankee, 1942 Kosmeski, 1942 Griffin, 1943, 1944, and the 1946 Griffith and Kaminsky All-Star teams. He was a two-time Negro World Series champion in 1943 and 1944 with the Homestead Grays, and he is also a member of the Washington Nationals Ring of Honor. He was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1972 by the Negro League Committee, and he had a heck of a career. So I'm going to go and read the little biography that the National Baseball Hall of Fame has put on. They have his primary team as the Homestead Grays, and his primary position as a catcher. Unfortunately for his career, like I said back, we're going to do a little bit of a callback to where I was talking about the movie 1942. He was supposed to be the first guy to, the first player to break the color barrier in Major League Baseball, and unfortunately he fell into a coma and died shortly, or a few years after falling into that coma. He was born December 21st in 1911 and died at the age of 35 in 1947 on January 20th in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He definitely had some health issues, but we'll get into that here in a second. So, was the myth really larger than reality? Not really. The applause that Josh Gibson received should have been louder, and he was considered the best power hitter of his era in the Negro Leagues, and perhaps even at the time the majors. Gibson was born December 21st, 1911 in Buena Vista, Georgia. His father moved to Pittsburgh in 1923, and then Josh's education ended in the 9th grade, where he was introduced to organized baseball at the age of 16. He became a professional by accident in July 25th, 1930, while sitting in the stands. The Homestead Grays catcher Buck Ewing injured his hand, and Gibson was invited to replace him because of his titanic home runs were already so well known in Pittsburgh at that time. Quote, "If someone told me Josh hit a ball a mile, I would have believed them," end quote, said Sam Jethro, who started for the Cleveland Buckeyes. His legendary feats with the Homestead Grays have many experts regarding Gibson as the sport's greatest home run hitter. Negro League statistics at the time are largely incomplete, but the legend of Gibson's power has always been larger than life. He was 6'1", 220, and nearly indestructible behind the plate. He occasionally played left field or third base, but never more than a game or two. Gibson's skills were natural and immersive. His powerful arm and quick release and agility made base runners very wary when trying to steal, but hitting is what made Gibson the second highest paid player in the Negro Leagues behind Satchel Paige, another future Hall of Famer who we're going to talk about in the next segment. The Sporting News Baseball's written authority for decades credited Gibson in 1967 with hitting a 580-foot home run in Yankee Stadium. The ball landed 2 feet from the top of the bleacher wall. Quote, "Josh was a better power hitter than Babe Ruth, Ted Williams, or anybody else I've ever seen," end quote, said a former Buckeye pitcher and manager Alonzo Boone. Quote, "Anything he touched was hard hit. He could power outside pitches to right field. Shortstops would move to left field when Josh came up to the plate." In 1972, Josh Gibson was elected to the Hall of Fame. He passed away January 20th, 1947. Paige may have put it best when describing Josh at the plate. Quote, "You look for his weakness, and while you're looking for it, he's liable to hit 45 home runs." Even Cool Papa Bell, who I will definitely touch in a different episode, said, quote, "He was a hitter. One of the greatest you ever saw. The most powerful. Never swung hard at the ball either. Just a short swing. Never swung all the way around. He hit them straight. Line drives, but they kept going." Now, that's from Cool Papa Bell. He was amazing. He just like Jackie, he was quite amazing. Wikipedia has his career stats as hitting .359, a career batting average with a .648 slugging percentage and 238 career home runs. The Baseball Hall of Fame has him at hitting 113 home runs, had almost 2,000 at-bats, scored 480 runs, 676 hits, 106 doubles, 45 triples, 113 home runs, 361 RBIs, 26 stolen bases, and 158 walks. Baseball Reference has his career average at .345, his career OPS or on base percentage at .394, his career OPS as 1,013. And this is all from the NLB. They have him as hitting a career 113 home runs, but like I said earlier, nobody really knows how many home runs or how many hits this was, just because the Negro Leagues were not ever covered like the major leagues were. So and these teams didn't have a lot of money. And like a lot of stadiums in the Negro Leagues actually didn't have fences because they couldn't afford to put up fences. And because of that, there are a lot of discrepancies when trying to find the stats of a lot of these players. Like when in 1940 and 1941, where Gibson was playing in the Mexican League with the Veracruz Azules, he was there. Like there aren't any stats on Baseball Reference for it. There just aren't any real. There just aren't any like for sure guaranteed stats that Baseball Reference and other places can find for sure. But he had a heck of a career. In 1933, he hit 467, 55 home runs in 137 games against all levels of competition. His lifetime average is said to be higher than 350, with other sources putting it as high as 384, which is the best in Negro League history. Gibson's Hall of Fame plaque says he, quote, almost hit 400 home runs in league and independent baseball during his 17-year career. I'm getting this from Wikipedia. It's hard to find information on a lot of these guys. It makes it so much more amazing because there are just so many legends about players like Josh Gibson and Cool Papa Bell and Satchel Paige, who these guys were just so good at playing baseball, and unfortunately for the times they just weren't able to play at what everybody viewed as the highest level, even though arguably a lot of teams in the Negro Leagues could have beaten a lot of those teams in the major leagues at the time. In early 1943, Gibson fell into a coma and was diagnosed with a brain tumor. After regaining consciousness, he refused the option of surgical removal and lived out the next 4 years with reoccurring headaches. In 1944, Gibson was hospitalized in Washington, D.C. at Gallagher Hospital for mental observation, and on January 20th, 1947, Gibson died of a stroke at the age of 35 years old. He was buried in Allegheny Cemetery in the Lawrenceville neighborhood of Pittsburgh, where he lay in an unmarked grave until a small plaque was placed there in 1975. Even though Jackie Robinson became the first black player in Major League history in April 47th, and Larry Doby, who broke the American League color barrier that July, felt Gibson was the best black player in 1945 and in 1946. Doby said in an interview later, quote, "One of the things that was disappointing and disheartening to a lot of black players at the time was that Jack was not the best player. The best player was Josh Gibson, and I think that's the reason why Josh died so early. He was heartbroken." In 1972, Gibson and Buck Leonard became the second and third players behind Satchel Paige to be inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame based on their careers in the Negro Leagues. Gibson's Hall of Fame plaque claims, like I said just a second ago, that he had almost 800 home runs in his career, though the number cannot be substantiated. The U.S. Postal Service issued a 33-cent U.S. commemorative postage stamp which features paintings of Gibson and includes his name. In 2000, he ranked 18th on the Sporting News' list of 100 greatest baseball players, the highest ranking of 5 players who have played all or most of their career in the Negro Leagues. The other players were Satchel Paige, Buck Leonard, Cool Papa Bell, and Oscar Charleston. In the same year, he was nominated as a finalist for Major League Baseball's All-Century Team. At PNC Park, the home of the Pittsburgh Pirates, and an exhibition honoring the 2 Negro League baseball teams, he was introduced in 2006, located in the stadium by the left field entrance in Legacy Square. The display features 7 players who competed for the Homestead Grays and Pittsburgh Crawfords, including Josh Gibson. In 2015, without any public announcement, the Pittsburgh Pirates removed all 7 statues from the Legacy Square arena. Ultimately, they were donated to the Josh Gibson Foundation and sold at auction to benefit the foundation. Most of the statues that originally resided in Legacy Square Park and Legacy Square and PNC Park, including Gibson's, are now on display at the Negro League's Baseball Museum in Kansas City, Missouri. In 2009, Gibson was awarded a statue inside the center field gate at Nationals Park, along with Frank Howard and Walter Johnson. He was named to the Washington Nationals Ring of Honor for, quote, significant contribution to the game of baseball in Washington, D.C. as part of the Homestead Grays on August 10th, 2010. He was so good, and unfortunately, his stats just aren't really widespread, so everything about him is is sort of legend, and I think that's one of the things that makes it so cool to learn about the legends that guys like Josh Gibson and Cool Papa Bell and Satchel Paige and everybody else. Like, it's just amazing to try and learn about who these people were, especially guys like Josh Gibson, where we don't actually know because a lot of stuff wasn't recorded. And while that is unfortunate, it creates a legend of somebody that definitely deserved more praise during his lifetime. And it is really, really amazing that he was so good at playing baseball, and unfortunately he passed away way too early, and it might have been possibly because of a broken heart of him not getting to go and break the color barrier himself. And while it was definitely it was mostly his brain tumor, but I definitely would agree that with Larry Doby that his friend probably died with a broken heart. And unfortunately for us, we never got to see Josh Gibson play in the major leagues, but he was absolutely one of the best players in baseball, of baseball history. And his son actually ended up going and playing for the Homestead Grays, and his son was also very instrumental in forming the Josh Gibson Foundation. There's an opera based on Josh Gibson's life, The Summer King, by composer Daniel Sonberg, which premiered on April 29th, 2017 in Pittsburgh. There are 3 films about Josh Gibson. In 1996, there was a made-for-cable film, Soul of a Game, with people portraying Satchel Paige, Jackie Robinson, Branch Rickey, and Happy Chandler, the commissioner. There are characters of the character of Leon Carter, played by James Earl Jones in 1976. The long-traveling All-Stars and Motor Kings is based on Bob Gibson, and the character Josh Exley, played by Jesse L. Martin in the 1999 X-Files episode The Unnatural, is also based on Josh Gibson. So in just a few minutes, we're going to be talking about Satchel Paige. Josh Gibson is amazing, and I know I didn't even touch on half of the stories that he is a part of. And if you guys want to hear more about Josh Gibson and Satchel Paige and all these other guys, just let me know. Reach out to us on Twitter at GSMC_baseball, or leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Spotify. Leave a comment on YouTube, something, so that way I can know if y'all like this kind of thing or if y'all don't like it, so I can give you all the best content that I can. But we'll be right back in just a second. We're going to talk about Satchel Paige.
Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
And welcome back, y'all, to the GSMC podcast. This is the last segment for today's episode, and I think I have a great one for y'all right here. So, Leroy Robert Satchel Paige is one of the most intriguing and ambiguous people I have ever had the privilege of trying to learn about. So, it is believed that he was born on July 7th, 1906. But his career was definitely a roller coaster of a ride. Nobody actually really knew how old he was. His career spanned almost 50 years, and it ended with his induction into the National Baseball Hall of Fame. He was a right-handed pitcher who first played semi-professionally for the Mobile Tigers from 1924 to 1926. He began his professional pitching career in 1926 with the Chattanooga Black Lookouts of the Negro Southern League and became the most famous and successful player from the Negro Leagues. On tours across the United States, Paige would sometimes have his infielders sit down behind him and then strike out the side. At the age of 42, he made his major league debut for the Cleveland Indians, and to this day, this makes him the oldest debutant in Major League Baseball history. Additionally, he was 59 years old, or believed to be, at pitching his last major league game, which is also a record that still stands to this day. Paige was the first black player to pitch in the American League and the seventh black player to play in the major leagues. Also in 1948, Paige became the first player who had played in the Negro Leagues to pitch in a World Series. The Indians won that series that year. That was also the last time the Cleveland Indians would win a World Series. Up until this point, the closest that they have come was obviously a couple times in the 1990s, and then most recently in 2016. The Indians did win that series. He also played for the St. Louis Browns from 1951 to 1953 and represented his team in the All-Star Game of 1952 and 1953. His last professional game on June 21st of 1966 for the Pennsylvania Grays of the Carolina League, 2 weeks shy of being 60 years old. In 1971, Paige became the first electee of the Negro League Commission to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. So, while Satchel Paige was playing baseball, many ages and birthdays were reported ranging from 1900 to 1908. Paige himself was the source of many of these dates. His actual birth date was July 7th of 1906, determined in 1948 when Cleveland Indians owner Bill Veckin traveled to Mobile, Alabama, and accompanied Paige's family to the county health department to obtain his birth certificate. Paige's birth certificate is displayed in his autobiography. And in 1959, Paige's mother told his reporter that he was 55 rather than 53, saying because she knew, she wrote it down in her Bible. Paige wrote in his autobiography, "Seems like Mom's Bible would know, but she ain't ever show me the Bible anyway." She was in her 90s when she told the reporter that, and sometimes she tended to forget things. His early life was pretty interesting as well. Satchel was born Leroy Robert Paige to John Paige, a gardener, and Lula Paige, a domestic worker in a section of Mobile, Alabama, known as Down the Bay. Lula and her children changed the spelling of their name from Paige, P-A-G-E, to Paige, P-A-I-G-E, in the mid-1920s, just before the start of Satchel's baseball career. Lula said, "Paige looked too much like a page in a book," whereas Satchel explained, "My folks started out by spelling their name Paige, P-A-G-E, and later stuck the I in to make themselves sound more high tone. The introduction of the new spelling coincided with the death of Satchel's father and may have suggested a desire for a new start." According to Paige, his nickname originated from the child work toting bags at the train station. He was not making enough money at a dime a bag, so he used a pole rope to build a contraption that allowed him to cart up to 4 bags at once. Another kid supposedly yelled, "You look like a watching satchel tree." A different story was told by a boyhood friend and neighbor, Wilbur Hines, who said he gave Paige the nickname after he was caught trying to steal a bag. At the age of 10, Satchel was playing, quote, top ball, which got him into baseball. Quote, top ball was a kid's game that used sticks and bottle caps instead of baseballs and bats to play a variation of the diamond sport. Satchel's mother, Lula, would even comment on how Satchel would rather play baseball than eat. It was always baseball, baseball. On July 24th, 1918, just 17 days after his 12th birthday, Leroy was sentenced to 6 years or until his 18th birthday, whichever came first, at the Alabama Reform School for Juvenile Negro Lawbreakers in Mountain Megs, Alabama. It is commonly believed that he was sent off to reform school because of shoplifting. New research shows that it was the rock-throwing battles that Leroy and his friends engaged with the white boys of the nearby Oakdale School that was a major reason he was sentenced to the reform school. The person who taught Leroy how to pitch was in the reform school, the Reverend Moses Davis. It was Davis who took the trustees of the school who devoted the long-time coaching hours of boys in baseball, and it was he who struck a deal with the sporting goods store in Montgomery to secure the team's first uniforms. Davis was an African-American and was the entire teaching staff at Mount Meigs, including the school founder, Cornelia Brown, a graduate of Tuskegee Institute. Leroy was released from the institution in December of 1923, 7 months short of his 18th birthday. He summed up his years of incarceration, quote, "I traded 5 years of freedom to learn how to pitch, and I started learning on the mound. They were not wasted years at all, and it made a real man out of me." After release, Paige played for several Mobile semi-pro teams. He joined the semi-pro Mobile Tigers, where his brother Wilson was already playing. He also pitched for semi-pro team named the, quote, "Down the Bay Boys," end quote. And he also recalled an incident in the 9th inning of a 1-0 ball game where his teammate made 3 consecutive errors, loading the bases for the other team with 2 outs. And angry, Paige said he stomped around the mound, kicking dirt. The fans started booing him, and so he decided that somebody was going to have to be shown up for that. He called in the outfielders, had them sit in the infield, while the fans and his own team started howling. Paige struck out the final batter, winning the game. This dude had a career of doing things like that. It was amazing. That was his whole life, was just having fun on the baseball field, and he was so much better than everybody else that he could just do that. It's so amazingly impressive that he was able to do that. This is from the baseballhall.org. The numbers, at least the big ones, do not do justice to this legend. The stories, however, keep alive the memory of a man who became bigger than the game. Leroy Satchel Paige was bigger than mere numbers. Fictitious stories surrounded Paige, who was born on July 7th in 1906 in Mobile, Alabama. He began his professional career in the Negro Leagues in the 20s after being discharged from a reform school in Alabama. The lanky 6'3" right-hander quickly became the biggest drawing card in Negro baseball, able to overpower batters with a buggy-whipped fastball. Paige, a showman at heart, bounced from team to team in search of the best paycheck, often hundreds of games a year in between regular Negro League assignments and brainstorming opportunities. During the 1930s, Paige's stints with the Negro League's powerhouse Pittsburgh Crossfords were interrupted by seasons with teams in North Dakota and the Dominican Republic. In the 1930s, Paige developed arm problems for the first time. Kansas City Monarchs owner J.L. Wilkins signed Paige to his first, quote, B team, giving Paige time to heal. Within a year, Paige's shoulder had recovered and his fastball had returned. As he aged, the control he once used to dazzle fans now became his primary weapon as a pitcher. He could throw the ball by your knees all day, said Cool Papa Bell. At the age of 42, Paige made his big league debut when Bill Vicken signed him to a contract with the Indians on July 7, 1948. 2 days later, Paige made his debut for the Cleveland club, involved in one of the tightest pennant races in American League history. That summer and fall, Paige went 6-1 and combined with 3 complete games and a save with a .284 ERA. Cleveland won the AL pennant in a 1-game playoff against Boston, then captured the World Series title in 6 games against the Braves. Paige became the first African-American pitcher to pitch in the World Series when he worked 2/3 of an inning in Game 5. Paige pitched for the Indians again in 1949, then spent 3 seasons with the St. Louis Browns from 1951 to 1953, earning 2 All-Star Game selections with the Browns. He then returned to life in the minors and barnstorming, resurfacing in the majors at the age of 59 with a one-game stint in the Athletics on September 25th, 1965, where he pitched 3 shutout innings. Paige was elected to the Hall of Fame in 1971 as the first electee of the Committee of Negro Baseball Leagues. He passed away on June 8th in 1982. Quote, age is a question of mind over matter, end quote. Paige said, quote, if you don't mind it, it doesn't matter. Cool Papa Bell once said, he made his living by throwing a ball to a spot over the plate the size of a matchbook. This dude had so many tricks up his sleeve, it's ridiculous. So just going through his Major League Baseball stats, he had a career ERA of 3.29. His ERA with the Cleveland Indians, his first year was 2.48. The following year it was a 3.04. Then his first year with the St. Louis Browns was not a good year. Definitely the worst ERA of his career with a 4.79 ERA. And then a bounce back the following 2 years where he made the All-Star League, and he had a 3.07 ERA and a 3.53 ERA in 1953. In 1952, he led the league in games finished, where he had 35 games finished. He had a career total of 476 Major League innings pitched. He gave up 174 runs. And by the way, he's doing this all in his 40s and 50s. He gave up 29 home runs in his career at the big league level. He had 180 walks and 288 strikeouts. He had 33 career saves, 4 career shutouts, and a career record of 28 and 39. Unfortunately for Satchel Paige, he didn't get the recognition earlier in his career when he would have been in his prime, but he played for a lot of teams. Listen to this. This is an incomplete list, and it is still an absurd amount of teams. In the Negro Leagues, he played for the Chattanooga Black Lookouts. He played for the Birmingham Black Barons, the Baltimore Black Sox, the Cleveland Cubs, the Pittsburgh Crawfords twice, the Bismarck Churchills, the Kansas City Monarchs, the Trio All-Stars, the New York Black Yankees, the Memphis Red Sox, the Philadelphia Stars. That's 10 teams right there. That's incomplete. And then he also played for the Cleveland Indians, the St. Louis Browns, and the Kansas City Athletics. His professional debut was in 1926, and his final professional debut was in 1965. That is 39 years of pitching in the big leagues, or pitching at some level. That is ridiculously good. Like, oh my gosh, he pitched for almost 40 years. Like, how do you, like, if you're not like amazing, like just absolutely dumbfounded at that, it's amazing. Like a very long career, and not even a pitcher's career, a very long career in Major League Baseball right now is a career that lasts about 20 years. He did that again. He had 2 incredibly long careers. If you just take one of them at the surface of, oh, all right, we're going to cut this one off at year 20, and we're going to just keep going until the wheels fall off, and that would be another 19 years of throwing a baseball for a living. That's amazing. Like, oh my gosh. So real quick, we're going to go over his pitching style before we get out of here. It was definitely a spectacle trying to watch that man pitch. It was made all the more entertaining by expansive pitching repertoire he developed over the years. In the early years, he was known as a pure fastball pitcher. Then he experimented with releasing pitchers at a variety of arm angles and different times as well. In fact, he also developed a very, very famous and a pitch that had to be outlawed because of how effective it was. In 1933, while playing for the Bismarck, North Dakota baseball team, the Bismarck Tribune reported Paige used a, quote, tricky delayed delivery with great effectiveness, something that would later become known as Paige's famous hesitation pitch. The idea came to me in a game when a guy was all tighted up waiting for my fastball. I knew he'd swing as soon as I barely moved, so when I stretched out, I paused a little bit longer with my arms above my head. Then I threw my foot forward, but I didn't come around with my arm right away. I put that foot of mine down, stopping for a second before the ball left my hand. When the foot hit the ground, the boy started swinging, so by the time I came around and whipped the whip, he was way off stride and couldn't get anywhere near the ball. I had me a strikeout, said Paige. In 1934, before a barnstorming matchup, Dizzy Dean was heard on the radio saying Satchel Paige had no clue how to throw a curve. In actuality, Paige had been practicing and perfecting his curveball in secret for many years. When Dean came up to bat, Satchel Paige struck him out on nothing but curveballs, officially adding the pitch to his repertoire. Paige could throw a variety of curveballs at different speeds and different arm angles. In late 1939, after Paige had recovered from severe arm injury that jeopardized his career, he redesigned his pitching repertoire to better take care of his arm. He still had an exceptional fastball, but he did away with that fast curve, deciding only to throw slow curves from that point on. He learned how to throw a knuckleball from Cool Papa Bell, a pitch which he reportedly perfected in regards to its movement, but did not always exhibit full control over it. He also added a, quote, slow sinker and a hesitation pitch more frequently. Along with these additions to his repertoire, Paige made greater use of his sidearm and submarine releases, by which made him a more deceptive pitcher and lessened the strain on his pitching arm. As Paige got older, he relied more and more on off-speed pitches, and by the time he finally got to play in the major leagues, he threw a seemingly endless variety of pitching options, all of which moved. He was essentially known for his tailing fastball, slow curve, hesitation pitch, a fantastic changeup, a highly effective eephus pitch, and reportedly could deceive batters by throwing fastballs with a curveball wrist motion and vice versa. Pitching this way allowed Paige to be a highly effective pitcher well into his 50s. So after his career, just going into some personal life stuff, on October 26th, Paige married a longtime girlfriend, Janet Howard. They separated a few years later when she served Paige with divorce papers while he was walking onto the field during a game at Wrigley. His court date, August 4th, 1943. Paige's divorce papers were finalized and him paying a one-time payment of $1,500 plus Howard's $300 attorney fees. Paige married Lucy Maria Figueroa during his time in Puerto Rico in 1940, but because he was not divorced from his first wife, his marriage to Figueroa was not legal. In 1946 or 1947, Paige married Lahoma Jean Brown. Paige and Lahoma had 7 children together. Lahoma also had a daughter from an earlier marriage. Paige died of a heart attack after a power failure in his home in Kansas City on June 8, 1982. Paige is buried on Page Island in Forest Hill Memorial Park Cemetery in Kansas City. He had one of the greatest careers of anybody, and if you're going to look up anybody from the Negro Leagues and just to learn more about, don't go with Jackie Robinson, don't go with Hank Aaron, don't go with Cool Papa Bell, although Cool Papa Bell is one heck of a story, and I'll definitely get to him in a later episode. But don't go to Josh Gibson, don't go to anybody else. Go to Satchel Paige and learn about him and learn about how amazing he was and how cool of a story he has. And just try and sort of immerse yourself in that kind of story. Just real quick before we leave, a In 2010, sports writer Joe Ponsky, writing for Sports Illustrated, named Paige the hardest thrower in the history of baseball. He based this in part on the fact that, quote, Joe DiMaggio would say that Paige was the best he ever faced. Bob Feller would say that Paige is the best he ever saw. Hack Wilson would say that the ball looked like a marble when across the plate. Dizzy Dean would say that Paige's fastball made it look like his own was a changeup. So nobody knows how hard he threw. Nobody knows how old he really was. And the list goes on of just ambiguity surrounding Satchel Paige, and that's what makes him so amazing. So that's going to be it for us today. Leave us a review on Apple iTunes. Leave a comment on YouTube. Give us a follow on Spotify. Tweet me at Patrick Kenny, KENNEY _. Follow us on Twitter at GSMC _baseball. Let us know what you guys want to hear about, and if you guys like this kind of episode, I'll do much more of these in the future. So thank you guys for listening. Y'all have a great rest of your day.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.